Hey, the internet, you're watching an exclusive episode 5 of our series, Let's Talk About. Let's go.
Hey everyone, if you're tuning in, we have a quick adjustment for you because you don't get to experience this online. This is an in-person only thing. And so we actually got to experience the song God Must Hate Me by Katie Turner, sung by Jess. You might know her from other music we've done, but it was a crazy, awesome experience. And so if you want to experience music like that, be sure to find us in person in St. John, Indiana, another time. And so Greg is actually going to talk about that song a little bit to start this week's message.
I heard that song for the first time a little over a month ago. And right after I heard it, I thought, we need to experience that song together in the last week of our conversation about mental health. It makes me think about a lot of things, but it kind of drew me toward Katie Turner and her story and kind of asking, why would she write that song? Why does she feel what she feels? Why does it go so deep? And it was interesting to me that when the song came out this past November, she was reflecting on it a little bit and how some people thought the song itself was a little melodramatic. This is what she said. She said, "Some may roll their eyes at the melodramatic title, and believe me, when I'm in a good headspace, I can laugh at myself too. But God Must Hate Me is about those times where the feelings are so omnipotent, you really start to believe it. That you were made wrong, that you're not good enough, and that maybe a higher power being angry with you is a pill easier to swallow than personal responsibility." You know, I've come across some people who are followers of Jesus who, when they talk about that song, they just want to argue with it. They want to say, oh, the Bible says this, the Bible says that. I got to tell you, I'm not prone to argue with it at all. I'm prone to feel it. I know from thousands of pastoral conversations over dozens of years that the feelings we have about ourselves and the feelings we have when we're not in a good headspace, when we're fighting through something that is a mental health issue, man, those feelings are real. And it does cause you to look around. And a lot of times you look around at other people and you play a little bit of a comparison game. We can all admit this and say, man, why did they get that? Why do they look like that? Why does life seem so easy for them? What? And not for me. And it can cause you to look inside of yourself and become frustrated or disappointed or feel like somehow you're off. And for anyone who has any sense that there is a God of the metaphysical, it will cause you to look up. And this is what she's saying, that when I just can't handle processing this myself, I need a place to deflect it. And I honestly ask the question, God, why'd you make me like this? And I think out of all of that, what I want to say to everyone in this room and everyone who's watching online is to remember, if I can represent God in the best way possible, for you to know that God would say, it's okay to not be okay. That the world and you yourself were created in ways that were beautiful and perfect, but the world and you yourself are actually part of the brokenness of this world right now. But the world and you yourself have a path to redemption and wholeness and healing again. And I know that God would want a church, a a place that is full of people who are trying to figure out this life that Jesus lived, to say that in this place, at least, it's a safe place to feel the feelings you're feeling, to express how they feel, even if they don't make sense and they don't line up with what you think is probably even right theology. It's just a safe place to say, yeah, we can have these conversations. I've been telling you the whole series, it was Jesus who said this, I'm the light of the world. It's an invitation from him. He's saying, come into the light. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And in part, what he's saying is you'll be able to see things as they are when right now things seem so confusing to you. And so we want to bring things into the light. And we've said, hey, we're going to talk about it. We called the series, Let's Talk About It. And I'm not going to spend time on this, but here's the idea. We want to remove all the stigmas. We want to open healthy conversations. And I want you to experience the difference that good relationships make, that good conversations make, that good counselors make, but also the difference that God himself can make with your mental health. And by all means, if you need to talk to a counselor, then please just text the word counsel to 94,000 and we will get you some decent recommendations for counselors in our area. And we can help financially if you need that. But let's talk about it. Now today, as we wrap up the series, after we've talked about addiction and anxiety and depression and isolation that kind of lays itself on top of all of that, we're going to explore the particular theme of anger. Now, I don't know if you've thought about this at all, but mental health doesn't discriminate between men and women. In some circumstances, I find that men are more prone to deny certain things about their struggle with mental health. And in other cases, women are more prone to deny something about their struggle with mental health. Sometimes things tip a little more one direction commonly than the other. And when it comes to anger, certainly women, you're included. But guys, man, this one's a big one for us. And I want us to have a conversation about that anger in a way that's healthy for us today and in a way that leads us to something that's healthier for us tomorrow. So actually, the way I want to begin today is I want us to do a little assessment, a picture of our own anger. Now, before I get to the questions for you, let me say this. Whenever I do a conversation, whenever I do a message about relationships, or about a specific issue like anger, these messages are set up. I mean, they are set up for you to apply this message to everyone except yourself, right? I mean, some of you are sitting right here right now and you're like, he said we're going to talk about anger. He already told my husband that this is mostly guys, not women. We are good to go. My husband needs to listen to this one today, right? No, I mean, he does, but let him listen about him and you listen about you. Sometimes I refer to these messages as elbows in messages, right? Well, we might be prone to elbow the person sitting next to us or want to, or you might be prone to say, man, I cannot wait. Well, what a great message, Greg. I'm going to share that with 4 people who need it. And I hope you will share it with people who might need it. But let's, before we start elbowing other people, just bring the elbows in. And you can literally do this. I would love to see it from right here. Like, oh, that was me. So let's just talk about some questions and see, like, is it possible that anger is an issue for you? So question number 1, you either have control over your anger or sometimes your anger has some control over you. I literally want you to check a box, whether it's in your mind or in the app. Which one of these is true for you? And be honest, if you have control over your anger, mark that. Don't feel guilty about that. But if it's true that sometimes your anger decides how you react, your anger causes you to do something you'd rather not do, but your anger kind of gets in charge sometimes, then it's this one. Just be honest. Here's another question. I've seen my anger make things more healthy for me and for others. Now listen, there is such a thing as healthy anger, righteous anger. Anger in and of itself is not sinful. Let's be perfectly clear about that. And sometimes when there's great injustices in the world, we need to get angry at the injustices so that it motivates us to make the world a better place, a healthier place, a more whole place. So maybe your anger has done that. Or maybe I've seen my anger make things less healthy for me and for others. You've one or the other. We all have anger, so did it make things better or did it make things worse? You choose. Next question. When I feel angry, I'm prone to spew it. When I feel angry, I'm prone to stuff it. When I feel angry, I'm prone to slow it. Which one of these is you? We all know people who spew it, right? They just pop off. We say they have a temper, that sort of thing. If that's you, say, that's me. I am prone to spew it. But equally unhealthy to spewing it is when I stuff it. People do not see me react. They don't see me get outraged about something, but I just kind of put that one in, and then I put this one in, and then I put that in. And sometimes it ends up in a big blow up later on, and sometimes it just ends up with me seeing the world in a very dark and judgmental way. So you stuffed it. I use the phrase slow it, obviously, as the healthy one of these three phrases, and you'll see why I use the phrase slow it in just a little while. But just for a minute, just be honest, which one are you? Here's another one. The last few times my anger erupted, I apologized. Or, the last few times my anger erupted, I did not apologize. Now, I say the last few times so that, for some of you, the last few times your anger erupted was all within the last 24 hours. For some of you, the last few times your anger erupted, it was over the course of 3 years. It doesn't matter to me whether it was in the last 24 hours or whether it was in the last 3 years. Here's my question. After it erupted, did you go and apologize to the person it erupted on? I don't know a more delineating line of whether someone is handling anger in a healthy way than whether they went to apologize. It doesn't solve all the problems, but it embraces the ownership of the issue. So which one for you? Did you apologize or did you not? And then kind of in the last step of self-assessment here, I'm going to give us back a continuum to finish off this series. When people say I'm feeling angry, you might mean any of these things. I'm curious which one you mean. You might mean that you're frustrated. We're going to talk in a little bit about how frustration hits everyone, and frustration is a precursor to angry, and everyone gets frustrated to some degree. Maybe that's where you're sitting. Sometimes it goes beyond frustrated to grumbling. This is not like yelling at someone or accusing someone or going toe-to-toe with somebody. It's just kind of spilling out from you. Your frustration is spilling out into complaining and grumbling. It happens online, it happens offline, it happens at work, it happens at home. You might be a grumbler. This is the move, okay? Not this. Exaggerating. Oh. You know you've moved past grumbling when you start to be frustrated by something and then you take the person you're frustrated with and you lay exaggerations on them. You start to use phrase like, she always, like, he never. Like, it's not true that it's always or never. You're just taking it to a level of exaggeration. You are also, when you see someone, starting to assume the worst about them rather than giving them a chance to win. And in relationships, this is one of the most difficult places to be because you'll start to feel like you cannot win in a relationship if someone is exaggerating and assuming the worst. Maybe you're actually hostile. This is when the temper does flare. This is when people walk on eggshells around you. Friends, if anyone has ever told you that, hey, your kids are walking on eggshells around you, or your employees are walking on eggshells, if they have ever said it, I promise you it is 100% true. Because they are walking on eggshells for a long time before anybody says it to you. So do not be closed off to the idea that maybe hostility is the place things are. And then there's rage. And rage is just out of control. Rage says what it wants to say. Rage doesn't even care anymore. And I'm curious for each of us to say, okay, in life right now, am I frustrated, grumbling, exaggerating, hostile, or raging? And so I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm hoping that you will receive this question as a potentially piercing question in your life. Will you go there with me? Can we do this together? Here's the question. Is it possible that you have embraced anger as normal? This is just the way life is. This is what everybody does. My anger is no big deal. Or you have embraced anger as justified. You would say, yes, I'm angry. Let me tell you, Greg, why I'm angry. It's because of this and this and this and this, and they're not doing their part, and she doesn't perform like she should, and that they were late, and you have anger, and you've embraced it as normal or justified, while all the while it is breaking you. And it is breaking your relationships. I mean, for most of us, our experiences with anger are included in the most memorable events of our lives. It was in anger that your dad hit you. And it was in anger that you said the thing you said, and the relationship died right there. Oh, you might have still been married for 2 years. But the relationship was dead the moment you said those words out of anger. And I want us all to see the power and the possibilities of anger, because a few of them are beautiful, but most of them are ugly. So let me talk just for a few minutes about how anger works. I want us to think about this and understand it. Frustration, that's the top one on the scale. It's inevitable when there's any gap between just what we expect and what's reality. This is everyday life, right? You expected her to say yes, but she said no. You're frustrated. You expected to be able to go somewhere this week, but it snowed and your flight got canceled. Frustrated. You expected the car in front of you to go the speed limit, and it will not go the speed limit. Frustrated. Everybody gets frustrated. This is the most natural human thing. And the whole idea here is I expected life to go one way, and it didn't go that way. COVID, for 2 years now, has been a hotbed for generating frustrations, because we pictured life going this way. You pictured being able to have the wedding. You pictured walking at graduation. You pictured going to school in person. You pictured all those things. They didn't happen that way. Frustration. Here's the question. Frustration begins the fuse to anger. So the question is, what do I do with the frustration, and will it lead to anger? And I use the word fuse very, very particularly here because you've seen things with short fuses, right? If I had a firecracker up here, you'd be like, yeah, the moment you light that, you only have a short amount of time until here we go. And I mean, people who are as old as me at least, like, Wile E. Coyote, right? Like, he's got some TNT, and he's got a box that's going to blow up over there, and he ran that fuse all the way over here, and it has to go all the way. And the fuse, the length of the fuse between frustration and anger, well, that length is everything. So, one of the pictures of a healthy life, and I want you to hear this. One of the pictures of a healthy spiritual life is there's a big gap, there is a long fuse between me being frustrated about something and it showing up in anger. And during that long fuse, you have the chance to take that frustration and make it something healthy before it comes to anger. Now, I've heard people describe this, and maybe I've even been guilty of this at times, saying, well, the length of your fuse between frustration and anger, that is a picture of spiritual maturity or spiritual immaturity. And honestly, I can't argue with that. It's probably a true statement. One of the ways you would know whether you're healthy in a spiritual way is the length of that fuse. But it's not so much about being judged for whether your fuse is long or short. It's actually a window into how would I make my fuse longer? How can I become healthier? Because listen, around here all the time we say, we want to live the life Jesus lived. We want our lives to look like God's looked. Let me show you a few things about God himself. It says, the Lord is slow to anger and abounding in love. You know where the scriptures say this? All over the place. This phrase over and over and over again. Don't miss this. This is who God is. God himself is slow to anger and abounding in love. And when the scriptures say that God is abounding in love, later on in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, it tells us about this love that God has. And the love says love is patient and it is not easily angered. It can be angered. It can be angered actually to bring about a good and healthy result, but it's not easily angered. The fuse isn't short. There's some built-in time between frustration and it erupting into anger. And then, of course, in the New Testament, some of you are very familiar with this passage from James, the brother of Jesus. He says, everyone should be quick to listen and slow to speak. Quick to listen and slow to speak. It's good posture in life. And then he says, and slow to become angry. If there's one thing that will help you work with your anger, it is to lengthen the fuse, just to slow things down, to be slow to become angry. This is important because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. There's a righteous anger, there's a godly anger, and there is a human anger. And the human anger, when it goes from lit to explosion, destroys things. So, let me ask this question. What is possible when you lengthen the fuse? What actually happens? Well, it gives you some time and some space to assess if the anger is warranted. This is what I'm asking you all to do, to slow down life a little bit, to slow your roll toward anger. And this is what the scriptures say about anger. It says, in your anger, do not sin. This is how we know anger itself is not a sin. The idea is we can get angry, and then we have to decide whether we're going to go this direction and sin or this direction and not sin. And then it says, do not let the sun go down while you're still angry. This is a conversation about stuffing it. Because if you're frustrated and it's doing some anger inside of you, but you haven't expressed it, if you haven't taken the time to work it out somewhere, it's going to build up inside of you. And then it says, actually go back to that passage, and then it says, and do not give the devil a foothold. Now, for those of us who believe in the spiritual realm, the idea is that Satan himself, the devil, he's called different things in the scriptures. Actually, one of the most common adjectives given to him is he's the deceiver. And what this is suggesting is that the devil will deceive you. And he'll take things that are frustrated and then he'll twist them a little bit. He'll make them seem normal to you. He'll cause you to justify yourself in your feeling about that. You'll feel like you're having actually some righteous anger, but it's actually a lie. And you will erupt in a way that destroys things. Because the other things the scriptures say, that Jesus says about the devil, is that the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Jesus said, I came to give you life to the full. Let me give you one quick example of this. Some of you know the story in Luke chapter 15. Jesus told 3 stories, one about a lost sheep. He basically said to followers of Jesus, he said, hey, you're fine. People who aren't followers of Jesus are lost. Give your attention to them. Then there's a story of a lost coin, and the woman goes on an all-out search, just like God would do for anyone who is lost or disconnected from him. And then there's a story of a lost son. We sometimes call it the prodigal son. And this is a very fascinating story because a young man basically leaves his father, wastes all his money, sleeps with prostitutes, all this kind of stuff, comes home, and his father is so glad that he came home that he throws this big party for his son who had been disobedient, but thank God came home. All the while, get this, there's an older brother. And the older brother, when he finds out that his younger brother got a party, after all he had done, this makes the older brother very angry. Now, look what happens here. I want you to see this because we need to look at this in our own lives. The older brother became angry, refused to go into the party. So his father went out and he pleaded with him. But he answered his father. He said, look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. When this son of yours, who squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him. Here's the question. Does the older brother have a right to be angry? His fuse is short. The party starts and he's angry. And he doesn't take any time to stop and assess to say, what's going on inside of me? Why do I feel all these feelings about my brother? The father comes out and he tries to convince him. He says, listen, no, you and I we both need to be glad because this brother of yours, he was lost, he was dead, he was gone, and now he's back. Can't we celebrate that? But the older brother could not see it. And this is one of the things that's so fascinating because, oh my goodness, if we can see this in our own lives, it will help so much. I'm going to suggest to you the older brother had no reason to be angry. Oh, he could look around and he could create the storyline in his head that his brother did this and this and this, and he did this and this and this. And when dad did this to his brother, somehow that was unfair to him. But it's not unfair to him. Please hear this. The dad has the full freedom to decide how to treat this son and how to treat that son. The dad actually says to the older brother, everything I have is yours. We can have a party anytime for you. We had to celebrate for this one. But, oh my goodness, hear this. We get judgy toward people in authority, toward people who have things, toward maybe even God himself. When we see that he has blessed someone else, we've been doing all the right things, and we haven't got what they got. One of the things I do in our areas, I'm a big fan of an event that takes place every February. It's called a sportsmanship dinner for all the local high school basketball teams. I've been able to pray at it a few times, go to it a lot of times. I love the event. Local businessmen have gotten together, and they sponsor this dinner to try to encourage sportsmanship going into the sectional season of all the basketball teams. So one year when I was there, I took a picture of what was going on. I thought, this is awesome. I want to celebrate it. I actually wrote an article for the Times that they published about how cool it is that some business leaders have taken responsibility and are encouraging sportsmanship among kids. Put it on Facebook. One of the first comments on Facebook. Well, why don't they do it for girls basketball? Now, listen to me. Whoever's feeling that, why don't they do it for girls basketball? It's a fair question. They do it for boys basketball? Man, it would be awesome if someone did it for girls basketball. But you start to get into a judgment mode where you're actually judging when someone does something good for someone else, and now you don't like it because they didn't do it for you or for the group you think they should do it for, and all the while, you actually aren't doing anything for them. Listen, I know this is tough to receive, but many times when I come across people who are angry, their anger isn't even justified. They've misjudged a situation, and the fuse is so short they didn't take time to think about it. They didn't slow it down. They didn't reflect on it. They didn't try to connect the dots. They just went straight there. And so part of this assessment process is to not let the evil one deceive you. Because there are things worth being angry about in this world. But many times, if you could lengthen that fuse, you actually could have time to cut the fuse and say, you know what? No reason for this frustration to go to anger. That's not even something to be angry about. Not only do you have time to assess it, but you have the time and space then to express the anger and do it in a way that's productive, not provocative. You see, this is how you know this is one of the ways you know whether your anger is healthy or not. If your anger is making things better, if your anger is healing brokenness, then by all means, be angry. But if your anger is actually about you, it's about saying what you want to say, it's about provoking a reaction, it's about justifying what's wrong, then you have to step back and until we have some length between the point of the frustration and the point of the explosion, until we're slow to anger, we won't even have time to sort out, to say, hey, is this a problem that needs to be solved? And if it is, how would I actually channel this anger towards solving it? Aristotle said this is so good. He said, anyone can become angry. That's easy. But to be angry with the right person, oh man, how often does this happen? Things are bad at work, and my family pays for it when I get home. To be angry with the right person to the right degree. See, this is one of the things about anger. When there's a small thing that happens, but the explosion is big, it goes all wrong. The right degree of anger is to have just a little more anger that's controlled to what the situation, the brokenness brought about. But to be angry with the right person to the right degree for the right purpose, for healing, not for destruction. To build someone up, not to build myself up. And in the right way. To be angry with the right person to the right degree for the right purpose and in the right way. This is not easy. And I want to encourage you, because I think if some of us could take the true anger we feel inside and channel it, stop and think and assess and decide, this is how I'm going to express it, then we could get somewhere. You see me use this chart all the time. The world is created perfect, brokenness was brought in, Christ brought redemption, and we're bringing restoration. Righteous anger, which I want to encourage every one of you to have, looks at places in this world where people are being mistreated. And almost all the time, the right way to think about it is not to think, how am I being mistreated so I can be angry about it? I actually scan the landscape. Someone else can maybe advocate for me. I'm going to advocate for the other. It bothers me that there's kids in Northwest Indiana who are growing up in the system, the foster care system, and they do not have enough loving parents to step in and try to walk with these kids through it. That bothers me. It makes me angry. And actually, as most of you know, I'm a foster parent because of it. Because I'm going to channel that anger to something that looks at the brokenness of this world and says, no, it's not okay. And frankly, once I've gotten up close to the system, I'm angry at almost everything about it. And there's been a few times, I will confess to you as your pastor, where I've sat across the kitchen table from a DCS worker who did not deserve the anger that I gave to her or to him. And we're all wrestling through this, right? The purpose was right. I cared about the kid. The degree was not right, and the recipient was not right. And so the very best thing we do with our anger is to channel it in the right way to the right person for a grander purpose, to take care. This is our restoration of the broken world. And not make it about ourselves. So, how do you do that? How do you lengthen the fuse? I know it sounds like a good plan, right? Lengthen the fuse as if you could snap your finger and the fuse is lengthened. And now I beautifully assess every situation. And I express my anger in the most healthy and holy of ways. How in the world would you ever do that? And I got to tell you, I only know one way. And it is absolutely centered in becoming a follower of Jesus and in being a follower of Jesus. How did Jesus handle his own mistreatment? He got angry at the problem of sin in the world. He got angry that sinners were on the outside being left out. He got angry about the brokenness of this world, and he did something about it. And when Jesus did that, not only did he set an example for us, he brought our redemption into place. And then he left, this is supernatural, he left his Spirit for us. And maybe in one of the clearest places the scriptures say this, in Galatians chapter 5, the scriptures say this: the acts of the flesh are obvious. Discord, jealousy, that's where anger comes from. I look around, I feel like I'm not getting a fair shake. And fits of rage. Anybody can do that. That's the human condition. Just be a human being. Let the flesh drive your life. You will end up with anger. But the fruit of the Spirit, what happens when you nurture, first of all, what happens when you surrender your life to Christ? You go under with Him. You're raised to walk a new life. You're deposited, this is how the scriptures describe it, the Spirit of God is deposited inside of you, and it starts to shape you over time, and it will produce fruit over time, and it will lengthen your fuse. Because the fruit of the Spirit is forbearance, it's patience. It means that I can put up with things even when they're not right for a while. It means I don't snap, I don't explode. And gentleness and self-control. And so maybe it seems too simple to you, but my invitation to you today is that if at the beginning of this message you could say, yeah, anger kind of does have its grip in me, then I plead with you not to be content with that, not to normalize it, and not to justify it. And instead, surrender to Christ. Welcome His Spirit into your life and nurture that in such a way that you'll experience the fruit of that Spirit for forbearance and gentleness and self-control.
I hope that this has been a meaningful experience for you, even online. And I want you to know that every time that we get together, both online and in person, we include a time of communion. This is a moment for people who follow Jesus to look back on life and remember with gratitude all the amazing things that God has done, our need for God right now, and to look forward with hope, knowing that God is with us every step of the way. So now is the time to get some food and drink to represent Jesus' body and His blood that was broken and poured out for each and every one of us. And during that time, we're going to reflect together. If you don't follow Jesus, that's totally okay. I'm glad that you're checking out this video. Go ahead and use this time to reflect on what you've heard so far. And with that, let's focus on the love of Jesus together. Music is one of the ways that we creatively express ourselves and express the love of God and our beliefs about Christianity. And I hope it's been a meaningful experience for you. And before you turn off this video, go ahead and hit the like, subscribe, and share button. And I want you to know that this video, this isn't the church. You are. So this week, I hope that you go and make a difference, that you go and be the church.